Welcome to another episode of BIM 360, the series for success. I'm David Campbell, and I brought along with me fellow BIM enthusiast and BIM 360 expert Joey Whitney.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to yet another episode of BIM 360 Series for Success. On this episode, we're going to be talking about BIM 360 design. Before we jump into BIM 360 design, we do have to talk about what is BIM 360? And we talk about this on every episode. So if you've tuned in before, it's the same 30-second rehash. What is BIM 360? So if you're just now tuning in, this is really important. So what is BIM 360? BIM 360 at its core is document management. It is a series of really cool features inside of a container, right? So this container, this BIM 360 document management container, is our common data environment, our single source of truth, our file container, if you will. And what do we get to do with this file container? So on one side, we have Forge. Forge is this series of APIs that this BIM 360 platform sits on. And it allows us to essentially push and pull data between various applications. So if we've got an ERP system, AR, VR, whatever it is, we can push and pull data from our BIM 360 site to that. On the other side of that, Autodesk has these really cool pre-baked modules that allow us to do really cool various tasks in the construction industry, anywhere from design all the way through layout and commissioning, handover, and all this stuff. But really, all of it's doing is pushing and pulling documents and models and files out of document management so that we can either collaborate or we can leverage them for controlling total stations out in the field, all that sort of stuff. So today we're going to be focusing on the collaboration component, and David's going to give us a rundown of BIM 360 design.
All right, thank you, Joe. Yeah, BIM 360 design, as you can see here, it sits right on top of BIM 360 docs, and kind of as we talk about every episode, really BIM 360, that's where it starts. As Joe kind of said there, it's your file repository, that file container that's going to hold everything. It has that version control, all that kind of stuff for holding and really enabling us to utilize that data, making sure everyone is on the same version, things like that. Now with design, you're going to see Revit Cloud Work Sharing. You're going to see collaboration for Civil 3D. And then you're also going to see a couple different workflows we're going to talk about today with design collaboration and then utilizing the desktop connector itself. Okay. With design and with this this series, we really wanted to kind of focus on how do you make these teams, what do they do, what these workflows look like, and again, what the actual BIM 360 design collaboration module looks like and what that enables us with. So this is going to be a kind of two-parter here, twofer. I'm going to go right into BIM 360 document management. So pretty much right where we left off. If we look down into the files section, so our folders here, we find our project file. So this is where design lives, is in our project files. This is where we're going to host our central models, any of our links, different things like that. And this is where we can host our AutoCAD or Civil 3D drawings as well. Okay, so we're going to go into that collaboration for Civil and for Revit as well. With these project files and with design collaboration, you need to enable collaboration spaces, right? And the way to do that is to create your folder structure. You'll notice that there's a couple different ways to create teams and folders really inside of document management for collaboration. One is to go to the project files and create a new subfolder. So I'm going to name this one, let's call this Mech2. Now what I'm going to do really quick is go into my mechanical here, and I'm going to actually, probably just my design, and I'm going to grab one of these models and I'm going to copy it into my Mech2 folder. And I'll explain why I'm doing that. So essentially, when you go to make your teams, and we got to go back to our project admin tab. So actually right where we left off again with our last episode, going back into that project admin tab here on that lower left-hand side, you guys will remember that we talked about what the project admin does in design collaboration. They create teams. So we'll create these design teams, right? So essentially what we want to do, well, we have a couple that have been deleted. So that's actually pretty nice to go ahead and recognize. If you do have any teams that maybe you've done away with, or you know that it's ended, or hey, actually on this one I messed up creating it, I can go ahead and just delete it out right here, and then delete out the folders that were included with that. Okay. So a nice kind of cleanup tool. Now, for me, again, I kind of talked about there's two different ways to create your design teams, right? So what I want to do is hit scan for new teams here. And this is going to look at the current folders that I have inside of document management under those project files to see if I have any new teams. Now you'll notice MEC2 is here. Now, I kind of mentioned this earlier. I copied and I pasted a model into the MEC2 folder. I did that because in order to recognize this folder as a team space, you do need to have a model or some kind of information stored within that folder. If you don't have anything in that folder, it's not going to recognize it as a team. Okay, so here's where I'm going to go ahead and make MEC2 a team. All right, and it's going to bring it right down here for me as soon as it's done loading this. Now, the other way to typically do this is to go add team. So there's my MEC2. And if I wanted to add any other ones, I could individually add team here and then specify what I want to name it, things like that. Now, I did want to talk about this before we move on. Here's with the members, right? So your members are actually going to come from your project administrators for one, and two, it's really anyone that has access to the folder in document management itself. So kind of warping back to my previous point, when you organize these folders and you kind of start, let's say, setting permissions on these folders, you're really setting up who can collaborate in these spaces. So here I have 6 people, okay? And let's say I want to go ahead and add something to my mechanical. I'll go into permissions, and here's where I'll say add, find a team member, specify their permission level. What do I want them to do inside of this? Okay, inside of this collaboration space that I'm making. I hit add, and now that member has been added to that folder. So the thing is here, if that member, if that permission has been set before the team space is created, it will carry that over into the team space. Or you can actually go through and create the team space, add your members, and then specify their permissions from your folder. So that's either way you can do it. Okay. Now, I did want to talk about the versioning here. So you'll notice some of my models are version 1. I have some version 6, version 2, version 3. One big thing to talk about here is, well, let's get out of that one and go to Revit. So I'm going to start in Revit and I'll go into Civil 3D next. Now, as I was saying, with BIM 360 design and in those folders, it's important to kind of talk about how we version control with our different models and these different workflows that I'd mentioned earlier with live linking and publish consume. Okay, when we get into Revit here, you're going to need to install the Autodesk desktop connector. Once you have that desktop connector, you establish your connection to BIM 360 either through going into Revit, and then what you'll do is typically you can do a save as and then path. And what it's going to do is when you install the desktop connector, it has a map drive that's stored here. Okay, and this drive just paths you to your different projects, and then you can do a save as and save into those different folders that you have made. Okay, or the other way to do that is in document management itself by going upload, right? So we can upload the files that way too. Now, if it is a collaborated model, if you want this to be a central model in the cloud, that is something else. You will need to go into that model. You will need to go to collaborate and then collaborate in the cloud through document management and path it up that way. Okay, so one thing I did want to talk about here, and this is actually a good showing. When you activate that desktop connector, when you connect your projects and you're starting to access some of these models, you're going to have access to your different projects here, but you're also going to have them here on your home screen. Notice this model here is showing a cloud, where this model right here is not. This model is centrally, it's a central model activated in the cloud. That's what it is. This one is not. So this is a model that is stored in the cloud, but is not yet a central model. So in this sense, if I wanted to open this, I can create a local copy of it and then navigate to that central model. And then essentially, if I wanted to, I wouldn't actually create a local. I'd detach that one and I'd push it up into BIM 360 docs as a central model to allow everyone to collaborate inside of it. So I'll go ahead and activate this hotel original here. And it's going to grab my central model that's located within BIM 360 docs. Now, as for that workflow I was speaking of, if you grant everyone in your design team or your design collaboration team in that collaboration space the permissions to access and do what they wish with this model, they can get in and essentially work on the model and synchronize as needed. So I'd go synchronize to central. And then essentially what they're going to be doing is seeing everyone else's changes, just like they're working in this real-time model, right? If I go back into BIM 360 docs here, you'll notice my versioning has not changed. So I'm on version 6. The versioning will not change when you synchronize to central within these models. Okay, so everyone working on this model, they can synchronize as they need to. It's going to stay the same. It's not until they actually publish. So we get in and publish these settings. And when you publish, what you'll end up doing is you'll specify the views or the sheets in the model that you want to go ahead and publish up. And that's when you'll go into manage cloud models. So you go into manage cloud models, and that's when you'll actually navigate into your different projects. This may take a second. It's going to go ahead and path itself to my different models. Well, within my different projects, excuse me. It's going to show you your projects. You double click into your project, find the model that you want to go ahead and publish or update, right? And then you choose to publish latest. Now, the big thing here to talk about is this is when you're ready for that version change, right? So I like to think about milestones in this sense. If I'm ready to change that version, why did I update that document? Did I add more sheets? Did I actually add views to these sheets? Were they updated? Is this my 60% CD, DD, kind of what have you? When we hit that specific milestone, that's why we're publishing. And what it allows us to do is really, while this is loading, I'll take you guys back into BIM 360 docs here. As we talked about in that last episode, it allows you to go ahead and compare those different versions so you can see exactly what changed from your different milestones in your project, right? So I'm going to get out of this one and go back into Revit. And we'll see here is my publish latest. And I'm going to find that hotel original here, and there is the publish latest symbol. Once I hit that, I will go ahead and hit publish. Okay, and this is what's updating itself into the cloud. So here in a second, we'll see this change from V6 to V7. And there it goes. There it is, right? So there's V7. That's how we publish that change. Now, Joey is going to talk about a publish and consume workflow when he gets into his portion of design collaboration in a little more depth. So we'll understand how that kind of works in more depth when we get into that portion of it. Now, for me, again, I can go ahead and switch back into Civil 3D. So that was the kind of collaboration for Revit portion. So I'll come back into Civil 3D now. And again, once you have that Autodesk desktop connector loaded, once you do your save as, you got to connect your Civil 3D 2020.2 and above to BIM 360 Design. Once you have that connection, you'll notice that these will populate in your home screen. Okay. Now, what I also like about this is it tells you whether this is cached on your local or not, what version it's in, who the author was, what date it was modified, if this file has your references, because that's one of the big things that BIM 360 Design enables us with in Civil 3D is to carry those references with us into that design. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the Topo 1, and I'm going to show you guys essentially how this works. I can open this drawing here, and it's going to go ahead and transfer my files. Now, what I like to do is also let people know that I'm working in this drawing and I don't want anyone else to. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this drawing in BIM 360 itself. Okay, so I'm locking that drawing. I'm going to get back into Civil 3D. And I can make any changes that I need to, obviously. And when I'm done changing, that's when I'd go ahead and hit save. When I hit save, we'll give it a second here. But when I hit save, that's what updates your version in Civil 3D. Okay, so that's actually going to update this version here. And I'll go ahead and hit refresh just to see if I can hasten it up a little bit. Oh, there it goes. All right, so there is my version 6 through Civil 3D. Okay, now I do like this integration as well, being able to link these models like my Civil 3D. If I can take my topo surface and grab it from within Revit, I just grab it right from BIM 360 here. So as that version changes in Civil 3D here, it updates my Revit link. So I can go ahead and reload that as I need to update that, recreate my surface, or do what have you. Now, I think that's it for my part. I'm pretty excited for Joey to go over his portion. He's going to cover the design collaboration module for you.
All right. Yes, David. And it's important to note that just released was the Plant 3D collaboration functionality with BIM 360 Design. It will work with Plant 3D 2021, I believe, which will be released any day now. So once this is all released and set up, we look forward to actually diving into that, hopefully. But while we're at it, we do want to show you guys how this whole publish consume stuff works, as well as the design collaboration module that you see up here in the waffle, as David calls it. So as David mentioned earlier, there are quite a few folders that you know, maybe he created or actually got created. So if we were in the project admin tab and we had created a team from scratch, and we named it whatever we wanted, XYZ, it would actually create a folder called XYZ team. It automatically appends team to the name, but would also get created at the same time as inside that XYZ team folder, you would actually see the consume folder as well. It automatically gets created. In addition, there's a shared folder that is automatically created. What that shared folder also has is every design team's published information. So David mentioned how he had created published stuff earlier. So if you go into design teams, you will see that there is published folders in there or files in there for other people to consume. Now, David published to the cloud. What we can actually do a step further and actually create packages. So let me actually come into my design collaboration tab. So you get there just by going to the waffle, design collaboration. I've got it saved just for speed for presentation purposes. So there's some cool stuff here, right? So we've got the three little dots here that'll drop down and show some cool stuff. But before I pull that timeline down, I actually want to show you guys everything left to right real quick. So if you notice right here, we've got our design team. That's the team I'm on, is the design team. Very creative, David, putting this together, design team. But what we also have is the various models that are in there, and then as well as any sheets and 3D views that are with them, and it actually tells the last published date. So as you know, David just published a bunch of stuff here recently, so I've got new models up there. We can click update to latest. I won't go through with this because when this runs, you can't actually access any other information because it's constantly updating all files inside of this. So we'll just let that go. You have the ability to actually schedule a publishing sequence, so we can do weekly, by day, time, all that sort of stuff. And then you also get a cool little snapshot over issues. So if you've got a lot of issues, or maybe you even have a lot of sets that you've published up here, you can actually search and filter by them. On the issue side, just like with docs, where we had the issues that you can export, you have an export log here as well. Important to note up here, we have the email notifications. This is actually very handy. So if this wasn't a demonstration project and was actually a live project, I would actually have this toggled on, so I would get email notifications every time a package is shared or consumed, because that is pivotal information. In addition, we have this ability to come in here and actually see the dialog box of the status of the projects, get the details with code, and if it's successful or where it failed or whatever. It brings up all that information. But I'm going to stay on this page for just a few seconds here. If you notice here, if I toggle over this sets, it automatically highlights set sheets and 3D views. Like one, essentially, they're all the same link to the same page. And what it's going to do is going to bring you here. And it's going to allow you to actually dive into the 4 sets. So I've got these 4 different folders here. And then I have there's 69 sheets between them. There's a 3D model associated with each. If I had more, it would obviously show more. So there's actually 4 models. But then you have this really handy feature called the project model. And this is an aggregated view of the entire project. It's all the models all pasted and pushed together. It's pretty awesome for us to be able to view that information. So what we can do here is, if we actually brought in, this wasn't our first one, but we had existing versions of this, we can actually show the changes that happened between them. And if you tuned into our docs session earlier, where we kind of went over, the 2D and 3D, what's changed, added, modified, removed module, it's similar in that capacity as well. But real quick, I want to come back in here, because this is where the really cool stuff happens. We have this little drop down. So if you click it once, it shows you, the most active team that you're on. I'm actually on all teams, I believe. So, I can pull it down even further. So let's just go ahead and do that. There isn't necessarily any modules for this one for us to show, but I just want to kind of go through this real quick. This is a timeline. It actually allows us to dive in. We can do it at up to the minute, see what's changed. And, I anticipate, if this was a live project, we'd have a lot more to show off. But we've just got a few in here over the past year or two that have some, useful updates, right? So this one has multiple nodes. This one hasn't actually been, it's been created, but it hasn't been consumed in any manner. So we can actually click that and consume it. But before I do that, I actually want to show you, you have the ability to actually create packages and actually go in and actually select what each individual element you want to bring into your package, and then you have the option to actually publish it, and again show what's changed between it, and whoever, before they consume it, they can actually come in and actually see what's been changed as well. So
yeah, Joey, I think that's a big point too, is that anybody can really change or detect the changes, I guess, in terms of, is this valuable enough? Is this big enough for me to bring in to my existing model? So we're thinking of links here, right? We're going to take this data in this sense, as Joey's talking about. When people are ready to consume this data, they want to make sure that this is worth actually consuming and bringing in and having everyone update their models with it. So it's a great thing to have here, to be able to go through and say, do I want to grab this? Do I want to just see, these specific sheets? I don't want to take this entire model. I want to just take these views, these sheets, what have you, and bring that in and consume that for my team to utilize.
yeah, and not only that, it actually allows you to visualize, hey, look, I think you made mistakes in your design, so let's stop. Let's review these. Let's create some issues. That's another great function of this, is we can create some issues. So actually, let me minimize you there. Sorry, I had that up. But we can actually create issues. I have no issues in here, but we can toggle those on. We can create issues in here. I've got them over here off to the side, issues for the current view. Create issues in here and actually assign those to people and say, look, maybe you made a mistake here. And then let's get some questions answered before we actually consume it. So if I hit save here, I've toggled on, three out of the 4 here. I want to click save. It's going to create that package and it's going to ask me what I want to do. Do I want to show the changes? Do I want to share it? Or do I want to delete it? In this case, I'm just going to delete it because you know what, David and I got enough content up here already. But what it did is it actually created a package just like you'd see here for other people to consume. Now, what does that look like for you? Say you're wanting to consume somebody else's package. So I've got an example up here already in a different project where I've got multiple teams with multiple files. I can actually pick somebody else's model. I've already consumed this one, but I could actually pick anything that's in here and actually choose to consume it, unconsume it, whatever I want, and actually bring that into my model. So let's roll this back real quick. There's one. See, it's going to bring up this model and its current view, and it's going to give me the kind of the history of it's been consumed and what's changed and all that sort of stuff. I have my sheets view in here as well. And again, it's kind of just a great snapshot to see what I brought in. And then what the great thing that happens is once it's been consumed, let me go back here to my document management side of things. Once it's been consumed, it's actually going to populate back into my consumed folder. So when I've published it for others to bring in, it goes into the shared folder. So if I chose to publish something, you would see a version update and it would actually come in here for other people to view. But if I consumed it and I went to my team, you would see it in my consumed folder that I had brought that in. That's really the big difference between publish and consume and how you're accessing that information. Kind of the big things to think about though, you know, did you want to live link it? Did you want to work in a more collaborative manner? It really depends on the project type, how well you know your collaborators. David and I know when we're working together, and if we're working on different teams, we'll run the live linking just because it's us. But if you know other people, you're probably going to want to run the publish consume workflow. And it's important to note that so as I'm in here with all of these teams are the same exact teams that David showed earlier in the design collaboration area. This, you know, underneath the project admin, these are the same teams. I'm in a different project, so it's not necessarily showing that component. Mm-hmm. I've got this Microsoft Teams thing up here, so it needs to get out of the way.
But yeah, exactly as you're saying, the teams that are listed there are the ones created under the project admin tab. And this timeline essentially populates based off of the data that everyone is sharing. And I like to think of this, as I said kind of earlier, as your links, right? You're connecting everyone together in this sense, whether it's civil or structure, MEP, kind of what have you. And you're bringing everyone together in a common data space, a common workspace, right? And we're saying, hey, we host all of our models, all of our data here. And as you do that, it gives people the capability to, again, maybe be a little picky about what information they are consuming, what information they're sharing, right? But also to be open with everybody and say, okay, cool, get into my model, let's go. If you're, let's say, working on a big project and you need someone from halfway across the world to work with you, okay, maybe their time zone is completely different. And you can find a way to kind of work with them, make a symbiotic kind of relationship where you're working during the day here, everybody's logging out, and you have a whole nother team working on that same model, live linking on the other half of the world. You know, or let's say it's COVID, right? We're all stuck in right now. Everyone collaborating from their home offices and pushing information up and specifying exactly what they're doing and what they're consuming into these models, what you're linking into your models to show for yourself and for everyone else.
Yes, that's 100% right. That is correct. So with that though, you know, as you're working and interacting with other people, maybe you want a good snapshot of where the project is. So I've got this project up here, and you know, you got to look at the timeline and see what's available for, you know, for you to consume and all that stuff. But there are some other great tools for you. So just like we have here, looking at the timeline, you have this issue tracking bar here. But if you come into the project home tab here. So David calls it the waffle. If you come up to the waffle, you click project home. What it's going to do is it's actually going to pull up And again, you can edit these and move them up and do whatever you want, but it's going to bring up the design issues. It's going to bring up the packages when they're updated. If
Yeah.
you had subscribed to that folder to begin with, so if we were in here and we actually had subscribed to this, we would get notifications. Like there are so many different ways for us to stay informed on what's happening with the project, with our design teams, with our
And
collaborators.
another note off that, if I could, before you leave this page, you'll see right there, right below your marker there is update to latest and schedule publish. So this is a nice thing that you can do, is schedule your publishing. So if you know that you want this to go up every Friday at like 5 p.m., 6 p.m., right? You can go ahead and schedule that publish to make sure it's daily, it's weekly, kind of what have you, in terms of when it's pushing this information up. And if you want to make sure that your team is updated to the latest information, you just hit update to latest. It's those are very nice tools that they have there.
Yeah,
And
it's a great way to be a BIM manager and keep everybody on the latest without having to manually go between every machine. It's
yes,
just an amazing tool.
I definitely agree. And that project home, I wanted to let everyone know we are planning on going in more detail with that. We're going to go. I think we're going to combine the project home with Insight, so we'll give you guys more detail on adjusting that the layout of that dashboard that you guys were seeing there in terms of that project home.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys for joining us. This has been a fun series or episode in the series, and we look forward to diving into more. And if you have any questions on this, feel free to reach out to us.